When Marcus and Nicole Thompson arrived at the Riverside Towers luxury building for their 2 p.m. appointment, the racist real estate agent looked at them and said, "I think there's been a misunderstanding. The units here start at $3 million. Perhaps I can show you something more realistic?" What she didn't know, Marcus and Nicole weren't there to buy a unit. They were there to finalize the purchase of the entire $40 million building, including her job. Her assumption just cost her everything. Marcus Thompson, 39, and Nicole Thompson, 37, had built their success together. They'd met in business school at Northwestern, got married a year after graduation, and spent the next decade building Thompson Digital Solutions, a software company specializing in cloud-based project management tools for enterprise clients. Last year, they'd sold the company to a tech giant for $180 million. After taxes, employee payouts, and investor distributions, Marcus and Nicole walked away with roughly $65 million in personal wealth. But unlike some entrepreneurs who sold companies and retired to beaches, Marcus and Nicole wanted to keep building. They'd spent the last 6 months exploring investment opportunities, and real estate kept coming up as the smartest move, specifically luxury residential properties in growing urban markets. Chicago's Gold Coast neighborhood was perfect. Waterfront location, wealthy demographics, strong rental demand, and limited new construction. When Riverside Towers came on the market, a 32-unit luxury building built in 1925, recently renovated, with unobstructed views of Lake Michigan, Marcus and Nicole saw opportunity. The building was listed at $40 million. The seller was a family trust liquidating assets. The numbers worked. Current rental income of $2.8 million annually, potential to increase rents by 15% after upgrades, long-term appreciation in a prime location. Marcus and Nicole had made an offer of $38.5 million, which had been accepted. They were now in the final stages of due diligence before closing. Part of that due diligence involved touring the building one more time, not as potential buyers of a single unit, but as the future owners evaluating their investment. They'd scheduled an appointment with the building's listing agent to walk through the common areas, review maintenance records, and see a few of the vacant units. On a Saturday afternoon in late October, Marcus and Nicole drove to Riverside Towers. It was a beautiful day, autumn sun, cool breeze off the lake. They'd spent the morning at their office reviewing financials for another potential investment, so they were dressed casually. Marcus in dark jeans and a navy sweater, Nicole in black jeans and a white blouse. Comfortable, but presentable. Riverside Towers was stunning. The pre-war building had been meticulously restored. Original Art Deco details, a grand marble lobby with a chandelier, brass mailboxes, and a uniformed doorman. The facade was limestone with decorative ironwork on the balconies. It looked like old money, established wealth, the kind of building where residents had trust funds and summer homes. Marcus and Nicole walked through the lobby doors at exactly 2 p.m. The doorman, an older white man in a burgundy uniform, greeted them politely but with a hint of curiosity, as if trying to figure out who they were visiting. "Good afternoon," Marcus said. "We have an appointment with Diane Morrison, the listing agent." The doorman's expression shifted slightly. "Ms. Morrison is showing units today. Are you here to view a property?" "Yes," Nicole said. "We have a 2 p.m. appointment." The doorman picked up a phone and called upstairs. "Ms. Morrison? There's a couple here. Yes. They say they have an appointment." A pause. "Okay, I'll send them up." He hung up and gestured toward the elevator. "She's in the penthouse, top floor." Marcus and Nicole took the elevator to the 15th floor. When the doors opened, they stepped into a private vestibule with only 2 doors, both penthouse units. One door was open, and a woman stood in the doorway. Diane Morrison was in her early 50s, white, with perfectly styled blonde hair, wearing an expensive-looking cream pantsuit and designer heels. She held a tablet and had the polished, professional demeanor of someone who'd spent decades in high-end real estate. Her eyes swept over Marcus and Nicole, their casual clothes, their youth, and her welcoming smile tightened almost imperceptibly. "Good afternoon," Diane said, her tone pleasant but measured. "You must be the 2 o'clock appointment. I'm Diane Morrison." "Marcus Thompson," Marcus said, extending his hand. "This is my wife, Nicole." Diane shook their hands briefly. "Thompson. I don't see a Thompson on my schedule for today." Nicole pulled out her phone and showed the confirmation email. "We scheduled this appointment 3 days ago, confirmed yesterday." Diane glanced at the email, then back at them. "I see. There must have been a communication issue with my assistant. Well, you're here now. Before we begin the tour, let me give you some information about Riverside Towers so you understand what you're looking at." She launched into what was clearly a well-rehearsed speech. Riverside Towers is one of the Gold Coast's most prestigious addresses. Built in 1925, fully renovated in 2022. 32 luxury units, most of them owned by longtime residents, executives, professionals, established families. The building has a very particular character and culture. We're quite selective about who we allow to purchase here. Marcus caught the phrasing. Allowed to purchase, as if buying a condo required permission. "The penthouse unit we're standing in," Diane continued, "is 4,200 square feet, 4 bedrooms, 4.5 baths, chef's kitchen, primary suite with lake views. It's listed at $3.8 million. She paused, watching their reactions. "That's quite a significant investment," Diane said carefully. "Most of our buyers are pre-qualified with substantial down payments, typically 30 to 40% of the purchase price. Have you spoken with a lender about financing?" "We're familiar with the financing process," Marcus said evenly. Diane's smile remained fixed. "Of course. I just want to make sure we're all on the same page about expectations. Riverside Towers attracts a very specific buyer, people who've achieved a certain level of success." She said the word delicately, as if unsure Marcus and Nicole had achieved it. Nicole felt her jaw tighten, but she kept her voice calm. "We'd like to see the unit." "Certainly," Diane said, though her tone suggested she considered it a waste of time. "But before we do, let me ask, what brings you to the Gold Coast? Are you relocating from another city? Do you have family in the area?" The questions felt like an interrogation. "Who are you? Why are you here? Do you belong?" "We live in Chicago," Marcus said. "We're looking at properties in this neighborhood." "I see," Diane said. "Well, the Gold Coast is wonderful, but it's also quite expensive. If you're just beginning your property search, I might suggest looking at some emerging neighborhoods. West Loop, Logan Square, much more affordable, and honestly, a better cultural fit for young professionals." There it was, cultural fit. The polite way of saying your kind doesn't belong here. "We're specifically interested in Gold Coast properties," Nicole said firmly. "Can we see the penthouse?" Diane hesitated, then checked her watch. "I actually have another showing in 30 minutes, so we'll need to keep this brief. Let me show you around quickly." She walked them through the penthouse with the bare minimum of effort. She pointed out features but didn't elaborate. She answered questions with one-sentence responses. She didn't highlight the custom finishes, the smart home technology, the private terrace with panoramic lake views. It was clear she'd already decided Marcus and Nicole weren't serious buyers. When they reached the primary bedroom, a stunning space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Michigan, Nicole paused to take it in. "This is beautiful," Nicole said. "The natural light is incredible." Diane barely glanced at the view. "Yes, it's nice. As I mentioned, the unit is $3.8 million. If you're interested in moving forward, you'd need to submit an offer through your agent, along with proof of funds and a pre-qualification letter. The seller is looking for a clean, all-cash deal if possible, or, at minimum, a very strong financial position." "We understand," Marcus said. Diane looked at them skeptically. "I don't mean to be discouraging, but in my experience, buyers in your demographic often underestimate the costs associated with luxury properties like this. Between the purchase price, closing costs, building assessments, and ongoing HOA fees, which here are $4,500 per month, you're looking at a significant financial commitment." buyers in your demographic. She didn't say young black couple, but the implication hung in the air. Nicole had heard enough. Ms. Morrison, you've made several assumptions since we arrived. You've questioned our financing, suggested we look at more affordable neighborhoods, and implied we don't understand what we're getting into. So let me be very clear. We can afford this property. The question is whether you're interested in showing it to us professionally, or if we're wasting our time. Diane's face flushed. I'm simply trying to manage expectations. You're trying to disqualify us, Marcus said quietly. Based on what? Our age? Our clothes? Or the fact that we're black? That is absolutely not... Diane started, her voice rising. At that moment, footsteps echoed from the hallway. A man's voice called out, Diane, are the Thompsons here yet? A white man in his 60s wearing a suit and tie walked into the penthouse. He carried a leather briefcase and had the unmistakable bearing of an attorney. Richard, Diane said, clearly flustered. I wasn't expecting you. The closing is scheduled for Monday, Richard said, extending his hand to Marcus. Richard Callahan, representing the seller. You must be Marcus and Nicole Thompson. Wonderful to finally meet you in person. Diane's face went pale. Closing? Yes, Richard said, looking confused. The sale of Riverside Towers. The Thompsons are purchasing the building. I thought you knew. You're the listing agent. The color drained completely from Diane's face. Her mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. Marcus looked at her steadily. Ms. Morrison, we're not here to buy this penthouse unit. We're here because we're buying the entire building. All 32 units, the common areas, the parking garage, everything, for $38.5 million, and as the new owners, we wanted to walk through the property one more time before closing. Diane looked like she might faint. You're buying the building? We are, Nicole said. And in the last 30 minutes you've questioned our finances, suggested we don't belong in this neighborhood, and made it clear you think we're wasting your time. All because you looked at us and decided we couldn't possibly afford to be here. Richard looked between Diane and the Thompsons, clearly piecing together what had happened. His expression darkened. Diane, is this true? Did you treat the buyers this way? I was following standard procedure, Diane stammered. Standard procedure? Marcus asked. Is it standard procedure to interrogate black buyers about their finances? To suggest they look at cheaper neighborhoods? To make them feel unwelcome? Diane's hands trembled. I didn't mean... I wasn't trying to. You absolutely were trying, Nicole said, her voice calm but firm. You looked at us and made a decision about who we are and what we can afford. You profiled us, and now you're going to have to explain that to your brokerage because we're going to file a formal complaint. Richard cleared his throat. Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, on behalf of my client, I apologize for this experience. This is completely unacceptable. Diane, I think you should leave. But I'm the listing agent, Diane protested weakly. And your commission depends on this sale closing, Richard said firmly, which it will, despite your best efforts to sabotage it. Leave, now. Diane gathered her tablet and purse with shaking hands and walked toward the door. As she passed Marcus and Nicole, she whispered, I'm sorry. I truly didn't know. That's the problem, Marcus said quietly. You didn't know who we were, so you assumed we didn't matter. How many other buyers have you treated this way? How many families did you steer away from this building because you decided they didn't fit? Diane didn't answer. She left the penthouse in silence. Richard turned to Marcus and Nicole, his expression pained. I am deeply sorry. That was discriminatory and unprofessional. I've worked with Diane for years, and I never imagined... That she was racist? Nicole finished. People rarely imagine it until they see it. Will this affect your decision to purchase? Richard asked carefully. Marcus and Nicole looked at each other, having one of those silent conversations that couples who've been together for years can have with just eye contact. No, Marcus said finally. We're still buying the building, but not because we're willing to overlook what happened. We're buying it because we want to make sure this building welcomes everyone. that it's not a place where people are judged by their skin color before they're even shown a unit. The closing proceeded as planned the following Monday. Marcus and Nicole became the official owners of Riverside Towers. Diane Morrison's brokerage firm launched an internal investigation after Marcus and Nicole filed their complaint. She was suspended, required to complete fair housing training, and ultimately chose to leave the industry rather than face further scrutiny. Marcus and Nicole hired a new property management company with an explicit commitment to fair housing practices. They updated building policies, created a resident diversity committee, and made it clear that Riverside Towers would welcome anyone who could afford to live there, regardless of race, religion, or background. Over the next year, several units turned over. Marcus and Nicole personally interviewed potential buyers, not to discriminate, but to ensure the building's culture was evolving. They attracted young professionals of color, immigrant families, LGBTQ couples, people who'd traditionally been excluded from buildings like Riverside Towers. Some longtime residents complained. A few moved out, uncomfortable with the changing demographics. But most stayed, and many embraced the evolution. The building became more vibrant, more diverse, more reflective of Chicago itself. One Saturday morning, a year after they'd purchased the building, Marcus and Nicole stood in the lobby as a young black couple, mid-20s, dressed casually, clearly nervous, approached the doorman for a unit viewing. The doorman greeted them warmly. "Good morning. Here to see the unit on the 8th floor? The agent is upstairs waiting for you." The couple smiled with relief and headed to the elevator. Nicole squeezed Marcus's hand. "That's why we did this." Marcus nodded. "So, they never have to experience what we did. Because that's what power is really for. Not revenge, but change. Not exclusion, but opening doors that were previously closed." Marcus and Nicole could have bought any building in Chicago. They chose Riverside Towers because they'd been made to feel unwelcome there, and they transformed it into a place where everyone could belong. If this story resonated with you, remember, housing discrimination isn't just about being denied a loan or refused service. It's about realtors steering you away from certain neighborhoods. It's about being questioned about your finances when white buyers aren't. It's about being told you're not the right fit for a community. But when people with resources refuse to accept those barriers and use their power to transform institutions, entire neighborhoods can change. Share this story. Subscribe for more moments that challenge us to see everyone as deserving of dignity. And if you work in real estate, remember, home ownership is a fundamental dream. Everyone deserves to be welcomed, respected, and given a fair chance, regardless of what they look like.